The TEISS Case Project is going to be a review of all the different aspects of TEISS that you're going to use for your project. So this is an excellent module in which you're going to remember all the stuff about TEISS that we have discussed and give you an example to go through before you start working on your project. In this module, we're going to generate a new TEISS project. We're going to talk about where to store it and what folders and what the files look like. You're going to add a point source. You're going to add a non-point source. You're going to use the TEISS calculators with fake activity values that we give you to generate estimates for the emissions using the TEISS calculators for the point source that you generate in your project and the non-point source. You're going to export the data to the EIS format. You're going to add a new inventory year, which is important as you work through the years that you will be working in your program. You will probably be updating your project. And you're going to review about the reports and charts in TEISS. In this module, you're going to be working through the tutorial that is in the folder, and it's called TEISS Tutorial. This tutorial lays out carefully, page by page, screenshot by screenshot, what you're going to do, and I'm going to demonstrate it. But the objective of this module is to do sections 1 through 4 of this tutorial, which includes the point source, the non-point source, doing the calculations, error checking, and exporting the project, all of which you're going to have to do for homework for this module, and then email us the zipped project for us to review, just like how you're going to do with your project if you would like us to review it prior to generating reports and charts and submitting the data to the National Emissions Inventory if that's what you want to ultimately do. The TEISS tutorial opens up to TEISS View training course. It goes right into describing the case project, which is just using the Hopi tribe tribal boundaries as an example. And what I'm going to do now is go through and do the project. When you go through and do it yourself, you can follow along with the tutorial, with the slides, and with this video if you'd like to. So to start a new project, you need to open TEISS. So to do that, I go to my Start button, I click All Programs, I find Lakes Environmental, and I have several Lakes Environmental programs. I'm going to click the TEISS View folder and click TEISS View, and that opens up with the familiar screen with the splash screen that we see here. We're going to say OK, and it opens up to a completely blank screen except for New and Open here, because TEISS is waiting for you to continue working on an existing project or start a new one. I'm going to click New, so I navigate to Desktop here, and then I find the folder called EI Training. I double click that, and then you can see it asks you for file name, and it already has .tsp as the extension, which is the TEISS extension, so it knows it needs to use TEISS to open up this file. And I'm going to type in, you can type in anything you want to remember here, but I'm going to call this Module 10 Hopi Case Project and save. Then it asks you what inventory year would you like to use, what activity data will you be using in this project, covering what year. So we're going to say, all right, well, we are going to use 2008 data because we have gotten activity data from these sources. For this example, we're going to select 2008 and we're going to say next. And then it asks you, okay, where is this project going to be located? Where is this emissions inventory going to be? We're going to click Arizona, and we don't need to import all of the data for the whole state. So I'm going to click Select Counties here, and then I'm only going to select Navajo County. So instead of going down and unchecking every one, I'm going to click this button here that has the Uncheck All tooltip come up when I hover over it, and that unchecks them. And then I'm going to navigate to Navajo County and just check that one, and then I'm going to say OK. And then I'm going to select the tribe, so I'm going to make sure this box, import tribes, is checked, but not all of the tribes. I'm going to click select tribes, and then once again I'm going to uncheck all of these, and the dialog box opens up with this slider over here all the way at the bottom. So I'm going to pull it to the top to see Hopi tribe. I'm going to check that, and then I'm going to say okay, and then next. And then just for purposes of this project, I'm going to uncheck import class 1 area coverage. That's those areas that EPA has deemed are so pristine, they're class 1 air quality areas. And then I'm going to uncheck import roads coverage, just for the purposes of this example. Uncheck display IPP wizard, because we're not interested in that, and say finish. And then it asks you, what information do you want to have to secure this project so other people can't come in and mess it up? I'm going to create a database name for this project, and I'm going to call it Module 10-Hopi Example. And the server name is automatically the name of your computer. The username is just default SA, and you can leave that as is. And remember, the password is EIView with capital E. So EIVIEW, and then I'm going to click OK. And then it takes a while to pull together all of the shapefile information that it has for the boundaries of the Hopi Reservation in this example. Then finally, it's loaded all of the shapefiles, and it asks you to log in. And remember, whenever it says username administrator and asks for the password, that is TEISS, TEISS, and say OK. And then it continues to load for a while. Ta-da! It opens up with a nice map of the surrounding county and the Hopi Reservation boundaries that you're going to use for this case project. You've got your project started. How are you going to enter information about a facility into your project? One option is to use the graphical interface of the map itself using the icons, for example, this facility icon, which looks like a little factory, and locating it on the map as best you can, looking at whatever landmarks are on your map, such as lakes or rivers or roads, then adding it by drawing a little polygon, which could be even as small as a rectangle, and then using that as the location for your point source. So this is useful for point sources. For area sources or for event sources, the location of that source is the whole tribal area. So in general, the map interface isn't the most useful way to enter information for non-point sources or for mobile sources, but you could still use it. So we're going to demonstrate that now. So what I'm going to assume is I know about where this source is, but not exactly, but that's close enough for this purpose. So we want to zoom in on an area in the blue area, which is the Hopi boundaries that we're going to use. So first I'm going to zoom in by clicking the plus icon. So then the plus sign opens up on my cursor, and I'm going to click that repeatedly till it zooms in a little bit. Now I want to add a point source. So I'm going to click over here. Now remember, this may be on the horizontal part of your map above it, or it may be here. You can actually drag these toolbars around, which gets confusing when we try to explain them to people. In general, this will open up on the side of your map, and if you hover your cursor over these little icons, it gives you a tool tip about what it is. So you could see that if you hover your cursor over the facility icon, it opens up and it says facility. So I'm going to click that so that TEISS knows, okay, she wants to draw a facility. And then I'm going to say, all right, I'm assuming that I know that it's just right here in this location, and I'm going to draw a little rectangle. And you can see how it opens up. There's a little red square around the first corner, and then I'm going to literally click to form one side of this source, click again to draw it, and in this case I'm going to draw a little triangle, and have the final point be within the first point that I drew's red box. So TEISS knows that I've finished drawing this facility, and it asks, choose location for facility. Well, we've put it in the blue area, but TEISS is just checking to make sure, and we want to say tribe. So we're going to click on the drop-down box and select Hopi tribe, and then say continue. And now it opens up the next box, and you could see that what it's done is open up this linear data entry screen. When you click on this input, it opens up this also. So this is just another way of getting to this linear data entry screen where all of the data is stored. And remember, here on the left, we've got this hierarchy. So we've got point sources selected, the point location, it knows it's within the Hopi tribal boundaries, and it's asking us about the facility now. So it's got this box open, and you can see in the breadcrumbs, it's saying, okay, all we know is that it's within the Hopi tribe, and we're working on the facility now. And it's asking us for this information here in this record that it wants us to fill in this form. And here we are in the slides. After drawing the facility on the map, so in other words, drawing the little rectangle or triangle and closing it by having the last point be within the first point's little red box, then it opens up this window and it says, are you sure you want to put it where you think you put it? You select the answer, Hopi tribe, and then it opens up this panel which asks for information about the facility. Now, when this panel opens up, you notice the different colors of the fields. Looking at the slide, the mandatory fields are in green. That's a data element that EPA and most data users require to be present to consider an inventory useful. So it's mandatory for you to enter information into the green fields. The necessary fields are necessary to NEI data users. And if you ultimately upload your data into EPA's national database, they may fill in the yellow fields, and the white fields are optional. So keep in mind that the more information you get that is accurate about the facility that you have, and you're there at the location on the ground, so you should fill in as much information as possible in the yellow and the white fields in addition to the mandatory green fields. So you can see in TEISS we have to enter information into the green fields. There are some fields that are grayed out, and those are when, based upon the information that you've already entered, TEISS feels that those are not relevant based upon the information that you've already entered. Data entry tips. Again, you can't enter information into the gray fields. If there is a field with a drop-down box or a search button, you can't type into that field. You have to select one of the items from the drop-down box or in the search box. And keep in mind that if you enter information, you click OK, you are saving that information in the TEISS database, and that's fine. You can go back and change it later. If you click the red X, then that record is not saved. So if you want to save the information, make sure to click the OK. Next, we need to enter information into this facility box to describe this facility that we just entered. So looking at the case study document, we see where we are, and on page 12 there's a table that says what information we need to enter. So let's just assume that this is another document, perhaps a permit application. You can see that I can select the facility site name, I can right click the selected portion, I can say copy, alternatively I can say Control C, then I go back into TEISS, facility site name, I click in that panel, right click and say paste, Rangeland Waste Company, and then I go through following along in the TEISS case study and fill in this information into that panel. So as you go through and enter this information, you'll see some funny things. For example, we know that the facility site status code needs to be operating. So if we click on that drop-down box, you can see not all of the words. So you go to the bottom and you can pull the grabber bar over, and you can see that there are various statuses beginning with operating, and we just want operating, OP. And then if you double click it, it fills in the panel. And you go through and you complete the address, and we get down to one of these panels where you can't type something in. So we've got the classification code, including the North American Industrial Classification System code, and we try to click in that green box. Aha! This is one of the boxes that we must select from, which is great because we don't want to type in some random NAICS code. So we have to click on this box over here to the right with the 3 dots to open up the dialog box for these NAICS codes. So we want to search for solid waste combustors and incinerators. So I'm just going to type in solid waste, and then I'm going to click the binoculars, solid waste management and remediation services. So the best idea is, since there are not that many that this found, we're going to go through and find solid waste combustors and incinerators, solid waste collection, solid waste combustors and incinerators. Select. And I'm going to go through and review the information from the top. Rangeland Waste Company, facility site identifier. TEISS makes that into a 1, and that's fine. Or you could change it to a number if you've got your own system. You need to make sure that the green boxes are filled in. So the next is the operating status, and then going down, the facility address, and then classification codes. Remember, we couldn't type in here, we just had to click here for the search button. And then the facility coordinates, which are helpfully in green so you know that they're necessary. Pulling through, you see that everything else is either grayed out or white, so is optional. For the purposes of this homework, we are going to click OK. Remember, if we clicked up here in the red box, it would not have saved it. So we're going to click OK, and that takes us back to the main linear data entry screen. And we can see that we now have one facility called the Rangeland Waste Company that's in the location, and we go up here to see the breadcrumbs, of Hopi Tribe, Arizona. So the next step is to define a release point, and this is necessary for point sources. In many cases, the release point is going to be fugitive, but you still have to have one. So in this case, we're going to assume that we're looking at a permit application, which you may very well do, and you need to enter the information that's specific about a stack at this Rangeland Waste Company. So the way we're going to do it is graphically using the map. So I'm going to close this linear data entry screen here where the data has been saved in the individual panels. I'm going to click close, and that takes us back to the map. You can see I've zoomed in to my Rangeland Waste Company facility by using the zoom in which you can click and it centers and zooms in on the area you click. I'm going to zoom out again a little bit, and you can see that this is just a zoomed in facility, which is the triangle that I drew on my map. Now I need to add a release point, so that's the second icon down, and it looks like a smokestack. So I'm going to click it, and then I'm going to do the same thing, just click, and it opens up the release point dialog box, where now it is asking you for information about this release point. So we go back into the information that we have about this source, which is in our tutorial document, or we can assume this is the permit application. We have information about this release point. It's a vertical stack, and it's operating, and it's 50 feet high. It has a diameter of 1/2 foot. The gas comes out of it pretty fast at 30 feet per second, it actually exits at a flow rate of 5.89 cubic feet per second. It is really hot at 335 degrees Fahrenheit. So we need to add this information into TEISS in this dialog box that is asking us about the release point. So we go ahead and add that information here, and you can leave the default release point identifier as 1, and you try to type in release point type code, and you see, oh, I can't type in anything because it has the search button. So I click there and it opens up this dialog box that asks me, what is this? Fugitive, vertical, horizontal, etc. And I fill that in from the tutorial or our permit description, vertical and operating, using the drop-down box and double-clicking in operating. And if you scroll down, you can see that the latitude and longitude are filled in based upon where we put that point. And then you have to fill in the stack parameters, again, from our documentation, 50 feet, etc. So we fill this information in, and we have the imperial units. And an interesting thing about TEISS is it converts it to metric units. So you enter in your last hot temperature of 335 degrees Fahrenheit into the last panel, and you scroll down, and you can see that what is great about TEISS is it has logged you as the administrator entering this panel and making this entries right now. And that's a great thing to be able to track in your project in terms of who entered what data when, and it can really help you, especially if you keep your database logbook and are recording this information, just notes in your database logbook. So you say, okay, and you can see that leads us back to the main linear data entry screen, and we have release point selected here because we just added that release point. So it's the last information we gathered based on the breadcrumbs that we have in the point location within the Hopi tribe in Arizona, a facility that we added, Rangeland Waste Company, and here it has the release point information, and you can see it's got the word vertical because we entered that. So now we have defined a point location all the way through the release point just using the graphical user interface of the map to lead us to what we can also get to by clicking input here, which opens up this linear data entry screen, and then we can see the information here. So there's two ways of getting to information. You can get to it using this input button, using the linear data entry screen, or you can use the map interface and making sure you have the selection arrow selected and not the zoom or another icon, making sure you have that selected, clicking on your facility, and you can look at these different items that come up when you left click, including facilities, Rangeland Waste Company, and right clicking, saying edit, and that also opens up the linear data entry screen with this particular facility selected. So like everything else, there's multiple ways of getting to this information. I don't want to edit this now, so I'm going to click the red X.